Fable 5's output tokens cost 11 times more than GLM 5.2. $50 per million versus $440, and GLM 5.2 still beats it on speed by nearly 2 to 1, which honestly shocked me. Zerai just dropped GLM 5.2 with a million token context and pricing that makes Fable 5 look like a luxury sedan, so right now is exactly the time to run the numbers. I'm comparing these two across 4 real tests, pulling from verified specs and independent speed benchmarks, no vendor spin. GLM 5.2 sweeps almost every measured test, but there's one specific use case where Fable 5 might still be worth 11 times the price, and it's probably not the one you'd guess. So who's this comparison actually for? If you're shipping a product that calls a model at scale, or running long context pipelines in Chinese or English, the difference between these two isn't academic. A cost gap this size can flip your unit economics entirely. And picking the wrong one means you're either burning budget for no reason or leaving real speed on the table. Test 1. Multilingual reasoning accuracy and language support. Picture this. You're building something for a Chinese-speaking audience. You assume the model handles it fine, and then 6 weeks in, your users start reporting garbage outputs in their native language. That's the failure mode, and finding out you hit it in production is a really bad day. What I found here is honestly frustrating because the data is one-sided. Fable 5 scores 96% on MGSM, which is multilingual grade school math, and that's a strong number, but GLM 5.2 has no published comparable benchmark at all. GLM 5.2 officially supports English and Chinese only per its Hugging Face model card, while Fable 5 doesn't even publish a language list, so you can see on screen its partial data on both sides. I was expecting at least one of these to have a clean multilingual story, and what I got was 2 incomplete datasets, so no winner here. GLM 5.2, 0, Fable 5.0, 1 tied. If you need Chinese, GLM 5.2 is the only one that explicitly confirms it, and if you need anything else, neither model gives you enough to go on right now. Test 2, inference speed and latency. A user submits a prompt, your app just sits there, and they close the tab before anything appears. That's not hypothetical. That's what a 109-second time to first token actually feels like in a real product, and it kills retention before you even know it's happening. Okay, so the numbers here are pretty wild. GLM 5.2 hits 106 tokens per second on output and starts responding in 1.36 seconds, while Fable 5 maxes at 63.4 tokens per second and takes 109 seconds to get to its first token. I looked at that figure twice because 109 seconds is not a typo, and yeah, these are from different test setups, Telnix for GLM 5.2 and Developer's Digest for Fable 5, but the gap is so large it's hard to explain away. I was expecting a gap, but not this. GLM 5.2 is nearly twice as fast on output and responds about 80 times faster on first token, so GLM 5.2 takes speed, no contest. Running score, GLM 5.2, 1, Fable 5, 0, with 1 tied, and for anything real-time, GLM 5.2 is the only one that actually feels instant. Test 3, context window size and long document handling. You've got a massive codebase or a long legal document, and you want to drop the whole thing into a single prompt. But if your model cuts off at 128k tokens, you're chunking, you're losing context, and your agent hallucinates things that were literally in the document you gave it. What I found here is pretty clean. Both GLM 5.2 and Fable 5 support 1 million tokens of context, and both cap output at around 128k tokens, so on screen the specs are basically identical. The one honest caveat is that Fable 5's practical working range is closer to 800k because of context rot, but the published spec is the same for both. Now, context rot is a real thing, and it affects both models, so the on-paper tie might actually favor GLM 5.2, slightly in practice if Fable 5 degrades earlier, but we don't have hard numbers on where each model starts to slip, so I'm not going to call that. The gap here is smaller than it looks, and for most workflows, 1 million tokens is way more than enough either way. I was honestly expecting one of these to have a bigger window, and what I got was a dead tie on paper. Both land at 1 million tokens, no winner, and that's the right call. Score stays at GLM 5.21, Fable 5.0, 2 tests tied, and context just isn't a differentiator between these two right now. Test 4, cost per token and pricing transparency. Your product gets traction. The API bill shows up. and it's 5 times what you modeled. That's not bad luck. That's what happens when you pick a model without checking the output token price. Because output tokens are where the real cost lies, and the difference between these two, on that line item, is not small. Alright, so I pulled the official API pricing for both, and the gap is honestly hard to believe. GLM 5.2 runs at $1.40 per million input tokens and $4.40 per million output tokens, while Fable 5 is $10 per million input and $50 per million output. That $50 per million output number is what really got me, because Fable 5 is 11 times more expensive per output token, and that's before you even think about volume. I was expecting Fable 5 to be pricier, but 11 times on output tokens is a different kind of expensive. So GLM 5.2 wins cost, and it's not close. Final score, GLM 5.2, 2, Fable 5, 0, 2 tied, and for any kind of production volume, the cost difference alone makes GLM 5.2 the default unless you've got a really specific reason to pay the premium. So where does GLM 5.2 clearly win? Speed, 106 tokens per second versus Fable's 63.4, nearly twice as fast. First token latency, 1.36 seconds versus 109 seconds, which is night and day for any real-time product. And cost, 1.40 per million input versus $10 and $4.40 output versus $50. So GLM 5.2 is 7 to 11 times cheaper, depending on which token you're counting. Now where does Fable 5 win? Honestly, this one's tricky to call cleanly. Users consistently report more coherent, narrative-rich output, especially on creative writing tasks, and that reputation shows up across a lot of developer feedback, but there's no hard benchmark to back it up right now. So take it with a grain of salt because it's anecdotal, not verified. Honestly, I was expecting a closer fight, and GLM 5.2 just ran away with it on every number we could actually measure. If you need speed, low cost, or a million token context for production use, GLM 5.2 is the pick. 11 times cheaper on output, full stop. If you're doing creative writing and prose quality is everything, Fable 5 might still be worth it, but you're paying a premium for vibes, not verified data.